Very often in the film industry, you find groups of people working together repeatedly. The same team works together again and again. But in your case, I think it's always a fresh group of people that you work with.
Not
Is
really.
that deliberate?
Not really. Yeah, some of the crew is repeated. Like my editor, for instance, has been continuous till from Agnisakshi till the last one. Cinematographers keep changing because they're also busy. Sometimes when I want them, they're not free. They're not
Available.
as jobless as you think. So, it's basically each film requires a different kind of working style.
But there are certain clicks that you see in the industry. That doesn't.
I don't know. I don't think that is important. The clicks and everything. So you choose a, like you choose an instrument that is suitable for that.
Okay.
Like they're all basically your colleagues to actually create your vision. It's basically your vision that they are creating. So in that sense, you find the right person at that time too.
So the vision keeps changing.
Not the vision,
Okay.
but the particular style might require someone else, which is suitable. And working with a new person, you also learn a lot of things. Whereas you work regularly with one person, then there is not much to explore anymore in each other.
Okay.
So you also kind of are pushed to a new challenge each time.
Okay. You have a movie like Electra that won a lot of awards but didn't reach the audience.
Yeah.
You have a movie like Artist where you go to court, to get it not being moved from a theatre. So what do you learn from these kind of experiences, and what do you think must change?
Well, it's basically the production and distribution and the exhibition system is quite decadent. They have not imbibed the new values either of entrepreneurship or of the need of the media or the changing tastes of the audience. They are still stuck in that 10 years or 25 years time warp. That's the biggest challenge we face, Whereas in places like in Mumbai or Bangalore, you have a lot of multiplexes, a lot of options, a lot of screening, new ways of screening, scheduling and all that. None of it is available here. And unfortunately, some of the big theatres are controlled by the state. And the state is so much more commercial in a crass way than a private operator, which is sad. It speaks so much about the kind of changing commercial mentality of the state and the people and everybody, and it's quite frustrating sometimes. But then you keep fighting and
Moving on.
you go ahead. Yeah.
Many of your movies very often touch upon subjects that are taboo in society, in our society. And you talked about this new generation movies, so-called new generation movies that are very bold. Do you think this is a reflection of the changes happening in our, taking place in our society? Are we becoming less hypocritical?
Well, there is certainly a change, thanks to the technology and thanks to the global economic scenario and everything. There is certainly a change in the sensibility of the new audience. They wouldn't like to, accept the kind of sentimental crap that can be, pushed over them all the time. That kind of a romantic notion.
Ideal picture.
Yeah. All those things are laughable now. People just hoot. But however, I'm not very, very happy or optimistic about the change also. You also have extremely abhorrible films getting huge success at the same time, even now. I don't want to name them, but we all know it. So that is happening at the side by side. Whereas there is new themes, new actors coming into it. You don't need to have the superstar to make a successful film. All that is our welcome change. There is certainly more openness, truthfulness about relationships, about certain values in society and so on, which is all greatly welcomed. but the picture is not very rosy yet, you know. I think, you know, this whole mentality about I am making a product to make money, that being the essential thread of this adventure. If that is a line, then that's, I'm wary of that. My approach had always been, I'm trying to make a work of art, something to communicate about the world and myself and yourself. I want it to succeed in the market too, you know. So that's the kind of line I would like to take. So there is a difference basically.
Being the son of a BJP leader, the natural assumption is that you are also a strong advocate of Hindutva. Is that true?
I don't know how it becomes a natural assumption because you know, not every son has to follow the same.
No, but are you a strong advocate of Hindutva?
No, not only Hindutva. I am not for any twa, okay, communist twa or whatever. Because I think a true artist cannot really fall into any dogma, so to speak. Because the very idea when you accept a dogma is that you
You're
accept
limiting
that truth
yourself
is,
also.
yeah, truth is just one dimensional. Whereas for an artist it's a continuous search for the layers of truth, you know, different dimension, ever emerging, ever expanding. So that is the inner process of an artist. So then I cannot be part of any pedagogy, any party or any, I can't say Sindabad to anything because I believe in the opposite also. It is a contradiction, but that's how you know, a creativity is explored when you see right in two, you know, on both sides or wrong in both sides. Then you have very interesting conflict. That's how you, because I think society and human being and life is always emerging and we have to redefine it constantly. So apart from the fact that I am conscious of the impact of political movements in our society, in our lives, I am unable to actually believe and follow in anything like that. As I grow older, the more so. You know,
That's
because
really
you
nice to
disbelieve
hear.
in everything, and you see that there is truth and there are lies in everything. So that is why I don't follow, as I said, any twa.
On several occasions we've heard you speak about your father. So will you tell us a little about your mother?
She was a darling. I mean, she was a very creative person. You know, she was very sensitive. She loved to do music. She used to play fiddle at that time. And she was a doctor, and she, a very sensitive person. And she was the one who made us, you know, aspire for freedom and, you know, independence and everything. And she struggled quite a lot. My father being a political worker at that time of a party which has no particular financial support to offer. So we struggled a lot, and she was actually she had gone through, you know, very, very difficult times, especially during the emergency when my dad was in the jail and so on. So I admire her emotional courage and everything. And she passed away in '98 while I was making Agnisakshi. So Agnisakshi to an extent was a kind of homage to her, to the motherhood, to the womanhood, everything.
Do your wife and your children get closely involved with the work that you do?
Yes and no, because they are the first people I talk to about a story. You know, they know whether I am really interested in a movie to follow. Sometimes my wife says that you don't even talk about that story. I don't think you're going to make it at all.
Okay.
You know, sometimes you take up a project because somebody is forcing you and everything. But ultimately, if you don't have conviction, you will not get to actually executing it. So my wife and my daughter is the first ones to sense that this is not you, this is not what you want to do, kind of thing. You know, so in that level, yes. My son more so. I mean, he also fell into this same line, and he studied filmmaking in a film school in Mumbai. and he's making advertisement films. So he's also in the same land. So we have a lot of creative discussion, but not really into an executional day-to-day level.
Right. What are some of your forthcoming projects that we can look forward to?
I really can't say, because I'm in my mind there are 3-4. I'm committed to a few people to make films, but I don't know what I'm making, because the scene is changing. The kind of putting together a film as a financial project is completely different. The role of the satellite and the market, everything is different. Internet market, everything is different now. And my sensibilities are also changing, so it's in a flux. I mean, I'm unable to actually point at something and tell you that this is my next.
Being an artist yourself, how was the making of the movie artist, special?
It's about a painter, and it's about the anguish that he goes through in life, and it's also a story of love, which is put in the context of today's art world. How will it survive? What are the challenges that it faces? And the inability to stay in a relationship, though you are deeply attached to each other. The kind of pressures that society makes, your own psychology makes. These were the themes that were explored, and it's a very performance-driven film where Anne Augustine and Fahad, I think, did a brilliant job. They were appreciated for that. It's a very dark and intimate film.
Women always occupy very central and strong characters in your films. Why so?
I think it's a very relative situation, because generally most of our films are about
the hero,
men. The hero's successes, his defeats, his challenges, all that. So when you see some film where a woman has a substantial role, you see that is something intentional. That's a design. No, it's not. I'm talking about human lives, man and woman. But because women's lives are not yet deeply explored in our films, this becomes a kind of point of focus. But however, I think women's emotional life, inner lives, are much more interesting than man's, given the kind of nature of our society, where there is so much of restrictions, and so the inner world is much more tormented for a woman. She has to play many roles. She has to take many appearances in lives, which makes it very interesting for me. And I guess right from my mother to several women that I've seen, they lead a much more interesting life, much more important life to tell society.
Okay. It was a real pleasure having you with us, especially on this 50th episode of Filmi Talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meera. It's a pleasure talking to you too.